I really think, and I've thought a lot about this, it really does come down to building relationships. And facilities management is such a unique field. And it's a field that people don't realize oftentimes outside of those who are in it or adjacent fields, what it involves. And one of my favorite parts of this genre in my career thus far has been building relationships with my clients. The reason I have a job is to support the school children, the city of Worcester, and their public education process. And before that, it was at UMass Medical School, supporting medical education and research. So to me, being passionate about those services that you provide, we're customer service. And it's been a great honor to really start to get to know the people that you work with and the people you support. They rely on us. And it's for me has been one of the best parts of my career.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars, the podcast building community and connections with facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Let's get right into it with today's guest. He is someone with a wealth of experience and impressive accolades. He's a 2022 Marquee Who's Who honoree. He is also named in the 2021 Worcester Business Journal 40 Under 40 and serves as a Justice of the Peace and Notary Public for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He has served as president of the board for Arts Worcester from 2019 to 2024 and remains on their board of directors. He is known for being a collaborative, energetic, and resourceful facilities professional with significant expertise in research facilities, healthcare settings, site development, tenant fit-up projects, and critical emergency operations in the public sector. Currently, he is the Assistant Director of Facilities and Manager of Capital Projects for the Worcester Public Schools. Prior to joining the City of Worcester, Ryan worked for 10 plus years for the Commonwealth of Mass at UMass Medical School, Department of Facilities Management. Ryan Hacker, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jay. Happy to be here.
Well, appreciate you investing the time. And, we've had conversations in the past, so I'm excited about really getting into this with you today, Ryan.
Me too.
So I'll start with, it's always my first question on this show, right? With all of that is an impressive array of things you're affiliated with, associated with, things you've done, and, just your experience. So with all of that, Ryan, what has been your biggest lesson learned throughout that journey?
That's a great first question. I really think, and I've thought a lot about this, it really does come down to building relationships. And facilities management is such a unique field. And it's a field that people don't realize oftentimes outside of those who are in it or adjacent fields, what it involves. And one of my favorite parts of this genre in my career thus far has been building relationships with my clients. The reason I have a job is to support the school children, the city of Worcester, and their public education process. And before that, it was at UMass Medical School, supporting medical education and research. So to me, being passionate about those, services that you provide, we're customer service. And it's been a great honor to really start to get to know the people that you work with and the people you support. They rely on us. And it's for me has been one of the best parts of my career.
Ryan, I've also found that relationships are just completely foundational in almost any field or aspect of life. So with what you just shared, what are some of the, nuggets or best practices that you've put in place over the years? Because let's face it, it's not easy. It's not always easy to build a relationship, right? Because everybody's different. So different types of people, different interests. How do you, how have you grown that? What are some best practices you've utilized?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is that tenure at a organization helps to build that just by naturally being around folks for a longer period of time. You get to be more invested in them. So for me, I spent the first 10 and a half years at UMass Medical School. And I had great mentors. I had great bosses, great supervisors, great coworkers. Um, so for me, being there 10 plus years really helped to solidify those relationships, not only with my coworkers, but with the laboratories, the doctors, the researchers, the whether it was the police department, the UMass PD, the ancillary support departments. Building those relationships happened partly because of time. I'm also a people person. I like talking to people. I like, in finding out about what people do. So that's always been helpful to me. And I found that as a facilities professional, when, you express that interest in what your clients are doing, they feel like they have a voice and an advocate. Um, with their facilities department. So that's been definitely one way I've helped to build that relationship. And that's not to say that you could be somewhere for a few years and not build strong relationships. But in my career, I have predominantly been in the public sector since I graduated undergrad, and only really have worked at two institutions um, in the facilities management sphere. So that's kind of maybe not a hack, but that's just one of my realities.
So, can you give us an example of a situation that occurred and it was successful or made to completion because of the relationship? How did the relationship play into helping that?
Yeah, I think, my role at UMass was fairly diverse in the sense of what we did. We really were the everything from soup to nuts to we were soup to nuts from planning to operation, to building, construct, design, building, construction, and then to the operations of our projects after. One of my favorite projects was the New England newborn screening facility, which we designed and built. We moved them out from a Jamaica Plain out to Worcester, and that project I got to really get to know the folks who were keeping the lab operations running, the directors, not only just the high ups in the organization, but the boots on the ground lab techs. Um, those types of relationships helped to make the project smooth. And so we were in a very unique position where we were the project architects and designers, but we were also the construction managers. We were also the, space planners. We were the move managers, and then we had to deal with them after the space was built. And I feel like I could walk into the lab, a year later to check in and make sure everything was functioning, and I'd have great conversations with the lab techs, and I'd ask them, hey, how did this design work? Did this work out well for you? And sometimes they'd say, no, actually, this was pretty crappy. I wish this work surface was higher. I wish this was adjustable. And getting that honest feedback. So that was the New England newborn screening program. We had a great project team on it as well. And so I feel like that's just one example of if I didn't have those relationships with my clients and customers and end users, that it would have been a less enjoyable project and maybe yielded less favorable results.
Great example. So let's flip that basically to your very last point there. Was there a scenario that you could recall where it would have been much smoother, better, more enjoyable, more successful had there been more of a foundational relationship built prior to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a lot of more of our emergency operations moments, COVID, for example, right? I was working at UMass Medical when COVID struck. I had just finished my master's degree in facilities management the literally weekend before everything shut down. And there were some stressful times that, going into something where we had to be working with agencies that we hadn't worked with before. We were much more involved in UMass Memorial Healthcare, their operations and ramp down of typical medical procedures, and then ramping back up to kind of dealing with the new reality of initial COVID. And, I think that it just puts in contrast, that facilities management you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable in facilities, um, as a field, because you never know. Most of the time, I would say you're, thrown curveballs, that you can expect, but then there's always going to be the ones that you don't expect. And so, yeah, I think that's a good example of a time that, not having those pre-existing relationships just make things a little more challenging.
Yep, completely agree. You just mentioned flexibility and adaptability too in facilities. Can you expand on that a bit? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, so in my current role, with the city of Worcester and the school department, my focus is on capital projects. But that being said, there's always something that comes up in operations. There's always going to be the unexpected maintenance item that turns into a capital project. There's always going to be the very ill-timed failure. It's going to be when a pipe bursts in cold weather and in one of your old buildings. We know that in the cold weather, you're going to have this risk. But going back to the flexibility, I think you have to be able to roll with the resources that you have, um, and pull on those relationships that I talked about, knowing, who you can call, knowing those key vendors, those key, folks who you have that working relationship with. And you can call them up and say, hey, I need your expertise, your help, your assistance. And they have that mutual respect. But being flexible, and then if they're not available, I mean, hey Ryan, sorry, we're already out on a pipe burst out at somewhere else. You have to always be on your toes, have a backup plan. And I think I would also add, remaining calm in the face of challenge. So adaptability, that is part of the tenet of adaptability, kind of that being prepared for emergencies, and remaining level-headed throughout it. Facilities professionals, we need to be the calm voice. We can't be the one shouting things. We have to be the one, orderly, overseeing things as the facilities falls apart around us.
That sounds so glamorous as it falls apart around us, right? What it feels like sometimes.
I picture like there was a meme of the general. I forget what movie it was from, and it's the general walking down the bridge of the ship as the in his powdered wig as the ship blows up around him. And I kind of feel like sometimes in facilities there's that, you have to embody that kind of calm in the face of storm, and just this stoic professionalism, when there's we've all probably been up on. I know I've been up on many a ruse, when a coils burst, or pipes burst or something, or there's been some catastrophic failure. You have a sprinkler sprinkler line pouring water into the 10th floor of your high-rise building, going down the elevator shaft, and you just have to kind of say, "We're going to deal with this."
Is that something that comes natural to you, or did you have to work on that? Staying calm in the face of, disaster, if you will.
I actually think it's always been a strength of mine. I'm an Eagle Scout. I was, my father was a Navy guy. I think that I've always sort of been kind of I don't want to say a prepper or a doomsday prepper, but I've always sort of been cognizant of the, catastrophes and disasters and emergency side of things that happen. And I've always sort of been the one to just be fairly calm and fairly, practical in the face of those situations. So I would say it's sort of ingrained in.
Good for you. It's that's obviously not the case for everybody. So good for you.
Thank you.
I want to flip to something you mentioned a couple times, like architecture, architects, and preface it by this. In my view, you've had more of, and we've discussed this too, a non-traditional path into facilities management. And You start with an architectural undergrad degree, a master's of facility management. How did those two, or did those two serve you well in terms of where you are today and how they got you? Did they play a role in how you got here today?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I think that I have always, I knew I wanted to design things and build things from like probably the age of 4 or 5. The first time my parents took me to um, Disney World, I really didn't care about the characters, the anything, that the normal kids would care, but I was cared about the buildings, the tracks, and the trolley tracks, and the pavements, you know, how things were built. And that's what and I was like 4 years old, right? And here I am, like looking at the trolley tracks and asking how the monorail is supported and things like that. So I've always loved architecture, the physical built environment around us. Um, I think I always wanted to be an architect from a young age. There was a brief period of time where I thought I wanted to be an industrial designer and design cars. And then but in high school, there was actually an assistant principal here in one of the Worcester Public Schools, and he's actually a facilities manager at a local church. His name is David Nolan, and he introduced me to the world of facilities and said, hey, you're interested in architecture. He got me a copy of the blueprints of the high school, Burncoat High School, which is actually an upcoming project that we're going to be rebuilding, a new school. And so he introduced me and said, people need to run our buildings, and just there's a lot that goes into this. And so I think I didn't waver from the architecture path. I followed that desire, and went on to get my undergrad degree in architecture. Um, but upon graduation, I took a job at UMass in the facilities department at the encouragement and recommendation of the then state building inspector, who who's been a mentor of mine since I was in my teens. Um, and he basically said, go work here. You can always go work in an architecture firm, but work here first for a few years, and you'll have a great team around you of great architects, engineers, facilities people who will teach you so much. And at UMass, I was thrown headfirst into the fit up of a 400 or 500,000 square foot building, the Albert Sherman Center. I helped oversee the fit up of all those labs. I was 22 years old, right out of school, and it was overwhelming. I'd never designed a research facility before. I didn't know what a -80 freezer did. I didn't know what a centrifuge actually looked like. So here I am, placing all this equipment, moving all these people in, and after about a year or two, I really realized I liked being at the same place. This goes back to kind of that, relationship building. But I realized that in facilities, you can build these relationships. Whereas if I were working at a firm, especially as a junior, designer, you'd be, you work on a project, you maybe design some parapets or, roof details or window details, and then you go and move on, and then you're doing more parapets and roof details for another project 200 miles away. And you never get to see your projects. You never get to see them completed. Facilities was different. So I feel like that was kind of my commitment to facilities. So I had made the choice probably about 5 years in, that I was definitely committed to the facilities management field. And instead of pursuing my master's degree in architecture and getting, licensed to become a licensed architect, I was at the time I was working under licensed architects and engineers, as a design drafter. So I felt like I was doing all the work. I was doing the work of an architect, but I knew that facilities management was where my passion lies. And so when I found out about the Mass Maritime Facilities Management Master's Program, that was very appealing to me. And the format worked. It was, every other weekend for, basically say 17, 18 months. And, that was a great fit for me. And I really enjoyed that program. I waited a while. I think I was 28 years old when I started my master's degree. I'm glad I did, because I went in and got a lot more out of the program, I feel like, than I would have if I had just continued on from undergrad. So I would say that both of my degrees have contributed directly to my where I am today. I remain very connected with folks from both Mass Art in Boston and Mass Maritime Academy, and both two state specialty institutions. I always say, you can't really. I can't seem to break away from public sector. I'm a graduate of the Worcester Public Schools. I went to Mass College of Art and Design. I worked for UMass Medical School. I went to grad school at Mass Maritime Academy, and now I'm working back in the Worcester Public Schools. So I definitely feel like public service is in my blood, which it is.
Oh, you found your place. Yeah.
Yeah, so I come from a family of a lot of public servants, public long-term, 40 plus year careers in public sector. Both my parents, my father was actually a custodian here in this district, in the department that I now help lead. So that's kind of cool too.
Very cool. To me, it sounds like the two degrees really and the two experiences really complement each other for you. I think it sounds like a great complement to each other and your own knowledge and your experience and what you can offer both of them.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things where, people in architecture degree programs or construction management degree programs, maybe don't realize that facilities or even engineering, facilities is a really valid and fulfilling possible career. And in the money's good. The money can be very good. The right junior designer at a firm. If you're a CAD designer at a firm, you're probably not making a lot of money. But if you go the facilities management route, you could potentially, accelerate your career. You could put to use your skills, your design skills, your engineering skills, your management skills. In a lot of places, a lot of facilities really need that influx of younger folks in the field.
They're going to shift a little bit with us here and just ask you this, Ryan. What's your biggest challenge? And it could be something that you've faced in the past, something you're currently facing. And how did you or how are you working through it or making it successful?
Yeah, I think there's, facilities comes with so many diverse challenges, right? So there's the really common challenges, the day-to-day professional challenges that we all face in the field. There's our operational challenges. There's our, time call cost quality challenge, right? There's the budget challenge, working within the parameters in the public sector. Funding is always at our forefront. But for me, one of my biggest challenges in my career has been being young. I'm 35. I just turned 35, and I have found that um, it can be hard to get people to take you seriously and to take your ideas and work seriously when you're younger. And it's not for lack of trying, but it's just people can be dismissive. It's definitely ageism. Ageism is at both ends of the spectrum. Just as much as a very experienced professional may have a hard time gaining employment, a sharp young facilities professional may have a hard time breaking in just because of their age. So that's been something that has, um, been a challenge across multiple sectors. A lot of times in the construction side of my work, being the 20 something year old on the job, people are dismissive of you. Um, and so I've been there a lot at UMass in that role. And, that was definitely a challenge. I think a little less so now. I grew my facial hair after COVID. That's helped it. So
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Coludis, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Coludis is there to make hard work easy. Visit coludis.com today to get started. I'm really glad you brought this up, and I believe this is the first time this topic has come up on the show. I'm sure our listeners who have very similar roles to you, the lion's share anyway, would appreciate hearing more on this. What things have you done to overcome this, or how did you manage that? At least the perception of it.
I think partly being good at your job. You're right. So if you're really competent, the quote I put in my high school yearbook was, "I don't want to be interesting. I want to be good." And what I meant by that was not, morally good and ethically good, which I strive to be, but I understood that to mean technically good and competent. And one of my big things that I've always tried to focus on is making sure that um, I'm doing the best possible job and being thoughtful, doing my research, using data to back up my decisions, synthesizing things, using my education, using both my degrees, using both of my employment experiences at the state and here in the school department. Really just examining and saying, am I making the right decision? Being thoughtful, being proactive, um, and I don't want to say proving people wrong, but proving that you know how to do the right thing um, in the face of challenge. And being a hard worker too. I think there's the common trope of young people being lazy, and I think I've always made sure to push myself to be a hard worker and deliver quality products, quality results, whatever project I'm working on, to really, I know it sounds cliche, but to put your, best into it, put your heart and soul into it. And I think that shows. And I think when people realize that you know your stuff, they start treating you a little, they treat you differently, and you have to earn that respect. So that's one way I've been working through it. I don't know if that's the right way, but that's what I have found.
Well, if it's working for you, then yeah, I'd say it's the successful way. So good for you. And by the way, thanks again for bringing that up. You put yourself out there very authentically, and I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone listening appreciates that as well. So we talked about a couple of different topics, and I'd like to expand on both of them and see how, if they intersect, and if so, how. Couple of them, like having the right team for the right application, was one of the topics that I wanted to ask you about, and the other one was, and I think they're probably unrelated for the most part, but supporting the mission of your clients. So let's tackle right team for the right application first, Ryan.
Yeah, and I say this, I think that depending on the facilities that we're working in, UMass Medical School, we were a major research institution that housed a major level one trauma center and hospital, a teaching hospital, one of the largest in central Massachusetts. And so, right, the teams that are needed to support those facilities are going to be slightly different than the teams needed in my current department, where we have, 50 plus schools, much older buildings. The average age of our Worcester Public Schools facilities is 77 years old. We're going to need different people. I probably don't need 5 or 10 refrigeration techs, but UMass Medical School does. So I think just finding or assembling the right team of internal staff in a department is definitely good. And then, this extends also to the right team of vendors. I did a lot of work with Coludis Painting at UMass Medical School, and they knew that, when we're painting the labs, that it's a different approach than painting a warehouse facility. So when the foreman comes in and knows he has to, tape off meticulously and, move things and not touch this area, that's different than, a painting contractor who can come in and just, get something done quickly.
By the way, thank you again, Ryan. I didn't want to brush over the support that you've given us throughout the years. We definitely appreciate the support and the business. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's, in the public sector, right, it's competitive bid, and so having vendors who know, that they have to offer a good value, that, as government folks, we have to be good stewards of our public funds, and also that we demand high quality. I think of the old trope of, public sector being kind of hack jobs, and in mismanaging funds, but also accepting poor quality workmanship. That's changed a lot, especially with the rise of facilities management advanced degrees in the field, with vendors who are really committed to delivering high quality work for public sector clients. So I think that's been a big thing. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of top-notch professional firms. I would say that the majority of the firms, whether they're general contractors or sub trades, um, mostly everyone in my career has been very professional. There's always been the onesie twosies, the one-offs that annoy you, that screw up stuff. But I think that when you have committed people to working towards a common goal, I have found that the results can be rewarding. So the right team for their application really is just assembling those teams of vendors, of consulting engineers, consulting architects, your professional network, right? The former classmates, people in the field who you can call and bounce ideas off of. So I think that's the right team for the application piece. And then, the supporting the mission of your clients. I think that to me is just, I always say when I was at UMass, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I am supporting their work. And right now, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a guidance counselor or a principal, but I am supporting their work. So I think that for facilities professionals, you need to at least have a solid and profound respect for the work that your end users and clients are doing in your facilities.
Question about that, Ryan, if I could. I like this topic quite a bit here. So have you had to adapt your own, have you had to learn new skills, or adapt your style or approach because you have two vastly different types of clients in your resume?
Yeah, right. So it's kind of that's a great question. I think with right in the school department, right, our principals are really our, there are clients that we report to in a sense. We don't facilities doesn't report up to principals, obviously. We're on the finance and operations side, but we rely on them for what their needs are. We need them to inform and help us run the facilities. So I would say that it's definitely here in the city. We have more bosses, if you will. When I was at the state, we had, I don't want to say we made our own rules, but it was a little facilities had a little more control over the facilities. In here in the city, we put a lot of onus and delegation to our principals, um, and the assistant superintendents and academic side. So yeah, I would say that that can be a little bit of a reframing your perspective.
Got it. Great stuff. Um, Also wanted to ask you about, it ties in with relationships where we started here, Ryan, networking and your affiliations. And I don't think we mentioned it in the intro, but you're part of AFE Worcester.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so I am on the board of directors of Chapter 74, which is the Worcester chapter of Association for Facilities Engineering. Um, I got connected with the organization probably back in 2016 or 2017, when our vice chancellor of facilities at the time had asked me to give a tour of the Sherman Center, which was our at that time newest building on campus. That was one of my first project there, so I knew the building extremely well. I knew every nook and cranny of it, and John Baker had asked me. He said, "Hey Ryan, I got this group that I belong to. We're going to give a tour. I'll do a tech talk, but he said I'd love you to lead the tour." And so I led the tour of the group, and from then on, I just had been attending events out of the Boston chapter, the Worcester chapter, and then eventually, signed up to be on the board of directors. So I've organized a couple tours, both at UMass. We did a tour of the new Doherty Memorial High School that Fontaine Brothers was building, and we're now opened. And then we have a tour of Worcester Technical High School coming up at the end of February. So I just find that it's great to be out with fellow facilities professionals. AFE is always looking for new members, so I'll do my plug for AFE. It's a great networking organization, obviously, but it's fun. Us facilities nerds, we like to see behind the scenes, and I could look at, we did a tour of Deer Island sewage treatment plant. couple years ago. It doesn't smell, actually. You'd think that all the waste from Boston would be more smelly, and it's actually amazingly um, anticlimactical. It's an extremely impressive facility. It's the scale of things is fantastic, but not what you'd expect. And same thing, we've done tours of the vent buildings at the Mass DOT tunnels. We've done tours of behind the scenes at the American Heritage Museum out in Hudson. So really, just a great opportunity to get that professional networking, but also see other facilities, see how other not competitors, but other peers or competitors, I guess, are doing things, and that's been really a rewarding organization to be a part of.
I love that you said that because whether it's a peer, a competitor, a customer, a vendor, we're all learning from each other. That's why we founded this show, Facility Rockstars, this group. That's, it sounds like a big reason why AFE exists. You've got other organizations like IFMA. I think we talked about this, but John Bachman, the president of AFE Chapter 33, was on the show just a couple of weeks ago, and it's amazing to me all of the commonality. You're both Mass Maritime grads. Like it seems like we don't go by one show without talking about Mass Maritime. What a credit to them and the industry, right?
Yeah, and I mean, so at Mass Maritime, our the director of the power plant at UMass Medical, is Joseph Collins, very experienced engineer, brilliant guy. He was the one who really encouraged me also to go to Mass Maritime for grad school. And I think that it's a very strong network. We had a couple other Mass Maritime engineers who worked on the engineering department with us, and it always was very fulfilling to see that community. And I feel that way about Mass Art too, which people always say Mass Art has an architecture program. They do, and it's actually based on MIT's curriculum, because the founders of the department were all MIT architects and engineers. But I think having those communities that you went to school with, I still talk to many of my cohort mates from Mass Maritime. They're a great resource to me as a facilities leader to say, hey, I got this situation. How have you tackled it? If someone doesn't know, I can reach out to any number of others and usually find someone who will give me some good sage advice.
Amazing. Excellent. You have been and are part of nonprofit organizations, and I think we touched on the role of facilities and how very beneficial facilities management can be to these organizations and these people, these causes, if you will. What did you mean by that?
So I mean, I've always enjoyed volunteering. I've always enjoyed being part of groups that give back to communities. I When I graduated Mass Art and moved back to Worcester, I helped to found Support Our Fine Arts, which was basically a booster club that supported the arts education at in the Worcester Public Schools. And I helped use my skill set to work on things like you know uh, getting funding for renovations of the facilities, which right kind of full circle here I am now in my role. So it's kind of fun to look back and see some former emails from the now deputy superintendent and CFO from 15 years ago when I was emailing him asking, hey, how can SOFA help support this initiative in the public schools? So that's been good. In one way, I've always enjoyed giving back. I think when I was speaking about the benefits to nonprofits oftentimes do have facilities of their own. They often have the attorney, the financial advisor, the HR professional. Oftentimes missing from that fold is the facilities professional, and a lot of nonprofits, maybe not tiny ones, but a lot of moderately sized to larger organizations have their own facilities. And if something actually catastrophic happened with their facility, they'd be, SOL for, dealing with it because they don't have that, benefit of having that expertise in house. And then, they may not be as proactive as they could be. Everything from like continuity of operations to just general maintenance and upkeep. That maybe they hire housekeeping, a company to come in and empty the trash and mop the floors once a week. But, could they benefit from a more comprehensive facilities maintenance plan? And usually it's not going to be it's not going to be the lawyer or the financial advisor who is telling you that information. It would be the facilities professional. So I encourage all facilities folks to look around to see if there's a need, if they have the capacity to volunteer, even if it's on an ad hoc basis. It doesn't necessarily mean being on the board of directors, but serving in kind of a pro bono capacity to organizations that you care about, and saying, hey, do you want me to come in and look at your building and let some recommendations, stuff like that, can be beneficial.
Great insights. And I'm really glad you brought this up on the show too. You've got two firsts today. Okay. Two firsts, Ryan.
Amazing.
Yeah. The whole nonprofit and volunteerism aspect hasn't come up. So thank you for bringing that up. Wow. Like, we've learned a lot from you. I don't know how long we've been talking, but we've learned a ton. So let's flip it. Let's learn a little bit, like, what does Ryan Hacker do when he's not doing all this other stuff? Like, what's life look like for you?
Yeah, no, well, for many years, my fun was volunteering for nonprofits, keeping busy with stuff. No, my wife lives here. My wife and I live here in Worcester. We have one son. He's 8 months old. He arrived actually 2 months early, and we spent a month in the NICU. And it was funny because it was at UMass, where I was very familiar with it, and I realized that I had a much higher medical aptitude than most people just by virtue of working at UMass for over 10 years. That was certainly a surprise for him to arrive so early. But he is healthy. His mother is doing great.
Sounds like he's ambitious like his father. Let me out. Let me get at it.
Yes, he wanted to arrive early, right? Couldn't stay in there. But I don't like the beach. That's a good two truths and a lie thing for me. I actually hate the sand. It's messy. It gets everywhere. I love being on the water. I love boats. I love being on the water. I just don't like the sand. And I love the winter. I love the snow. I was just up in New Hampshire this past weekend skiing. So I'm very much a winter kid. My birthday's in January, so I'm definitely very much a winter baby. I love supporting the arts. Arts Worcester is a great organization. I attend, in addition to obviously being a volunteer, a core volunteer there. I oversaw the design and construction of their newest headquarters, which is how I got looped into being on the president of the board. But that organization has been a great organization to be a part of, have a great community down there. I serve as an election warden for the city of Worcester, which it can actually be fun. I guess it's more civic obligation, but that definitely occupies my time. I love traveling. I love the mountains, exploring, old main streets and back roads like that chronicle, right? Road trips around New England. I love my cars. I'm a big car enthusiast. I have a 90s Chrysler New Yorker. I have a 66 Mustang that is a project car. But
I like
yeah.
that.
And
Is that
definitely,
the
yeah.
what's the 289?
No, it's actually the base model. It's literally it's the most bare bones one you can get. It was my father-in-law's when he passed away. We were given it to us by my mother-in-law, and so that's a project car that has taken a backseat to my son's arrival and all that type. But I love boring stuff like cutting the grass, right? That's nice zen. I guess it kind of goes into facilities management. So a lot of my hobbies are facilities adjacent, which I realize isn't great. But if you love what you do, right? That saying, love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I love coffee. I sit in a coffee shop with a book, and being involved in the community is really just important to me. So I like to not pitter patter, dilly dally, but just get around and see what's going on in my community and in the region.
Very diverse set of interests and activities, Ryan. Very, very impressive. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Before we wrap up, you covered a number of topics and a lot of good knowledge here. Hopefully, our listeners are taking away some things they want to apply. But how would they get in touch with you? How would you prefer if people have more questions or want you to expand?
Yes, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Definitely available on LinkedIn for connects. If people are interested in the facilities world to join up with AFE. We're in the process of revamping the chapter website. So come to an AFE tour. Just get involved in stuff. We need in my department right now we need a painter, we need a locksmith, we need a plumber. So if anyone knows folks in those areas looking to start a career on the trade side, we have some trades positions open here in the school department. You get a pension, you get a fulfilling mission, fairly regular hours. But no, I would say shoot me a message on LinkedIn and connect. It's a great way to get in touch.
Fantastic. Ryan, thank you so much for investing all of this time and sharing so much knowledge and things about yourself and your history and your journey. We really appreciate you taking the time and being here with us.
No, I appreciate it, and then I look forward to future episodes as well. It's been a great podcast here.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And for everyone listening, thank you for investing the time into Facility Rockstars. If you learned something, if you're enjoying the show, wherever you digest your podcast, Spotify, Apple, just hit that follow button and feel free to give us a review. 5 stars are great if you feel that way. And Ryan, thanks again. And another exciting, informative episode of Facility Rockstars. So we'll catch everyone next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.